Bhagavatam. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 15. Chapter 15 is the Pandavas retire timely. And the text for today is text 38, Prabhuji. So I hand over to you. Unless you want us to read the text, translation and purport, kindly let us know. Hare Krishna.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Mata. Hare Krishna. I'm able to share my... Okay. Okay, 1 second. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. And yeah, welcome to the next Alderet class. And today, as Mataji said, we're looking at text 38. So you can see here this wonderful painting this is the Pandavas entering Hastinapur. I'm assuming, after the victory. Yeah, so we can see the Pandavas there in the front. And very, very beautiful painting, as I'm sure you can agree. And you can see, there's some elephants. You can see statues of elephants in the background as well, and there's there's all kinds of things going on there. Anyway, so let's move on. Okay, so we'll recite the Sanskrit first. Swarat potram vinayinam atmana susamam gunahi toya nivyapatim bhumer abhyashinchad gajavayan. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter, in the capital of Hastinapur, he enthroned his grandson, who was trained and equally qualified as the emperor and master of all land bordered by the seas. So obviously it says he is referring to Maharaj Yudhishthir. So he is, now enthroning his grandson, Maharaj Parikshit, on the throne. Okay. Okay, so we'll have a look at the purport now. Okay, so would anyone like to read this first section of the purport for us, please?
I can read if there are no volunteers.
Sure, thank you.
The first bullet point or the whole page?
The whole slide, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The total land on the earth, bordered by the seas, was under the subjugation of the king of Hastinapur. Maharaj Yudhishthira trained his grandson, Maharaj Parikshit, who was equally qualified in state administration in terms of the king's obligation to the citizens. Thus, Parikshit was enthroned on the seat of Maharaj Yudhishthira prior to his departure back to Godhead. Concerning Maharaj Parikshit, the specific word used, Vinayinam, is significant. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, over to you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So yeah, obviously here we can see the total land on the earth bordered by the seas. Obviously that means the whole world, basically. As we know from the Srimad Bhagavatam explained so many times, that at that time there was one empire, one kingdom ruled by the emperor, who at that time was living or was based in Hastinapur. And then obviously there are other kings across the world, but they are like subordinate kings. And then here's this important point here, that Maharaj Yudhishthira was training him in terms of administration, and specifically it mentions the king's obligation to the citizens. So obviously, in today's day and age in the material world, a kingdom, having a monarchy, is considered something backward, and democracy is is the current, or has been the current thing for a long time now. But it's not, this is saying that it's not like a king or a monarchy in a negative sense, that they just have, obviously they have absolute power and they just do whatever they like with it, and they don't care about their citizens. But here specifically, they're trained in the king's obligation to the citizens. So they're actually obliged to the citizens. They have specific duties which they have to fulfill to the citizens. And then, it mentions that Maharaj Yudhishthira, he's finished his pastimes, he's wrapping up his pastimes here in the material world, and it's saying that he's departing back to Godhead. As we know, the Pandavas are all departing. Ultimately because they don't want to, be separated from Krishna. As we know, Krishna has already left, and they also, their mission is done. They were there to help Krishna in his mission. So the Krishna has finished that mission. He's gone. He's now back in his abode, but the Pandavas, feeling separation from Krishna, they are also preparing to leave. But, before he leaves, Maharaj Yudhishthira is making sure that the kingdom is in safe hands. And sorry, I forgot to put it mentions about Vinayanam. I forgot to put the meaning of Vinayanam. Anyway, we'll look at that later. Okay, so if we go on to the second part of the purport, it's very short, so I'll just read this part out. So Srila Prabhupada says that why was the king of Hastinapur, at least till the time of Maharaj Parikshit, accepted as the emperor of the world? The only reason is that the people of the world were happy because of the good administration of the emperor. So again, it's a monarchy. We have a king or an emperor, but again, it's not they're just doing whatever they like and who cares about the people. No, they're making sure that all the people of the world are actually happy, because of the good administration of the emperor. And if we look at today's world, how many people are happy with the administration of the world, or at least whatever country they're living in? Very, very few people are actually happy with the administration. But here's explaining the people of the world, not just Hastinapur, not just that greater area which we now call India, but no, the whole world, everyone was happy. So yeah, we can't even imagine that, in today's age. Okay, would anyone like to read this third part of the purport, please?
The happiness of the citizens was due to ample production of the natural produce, such as grains, fruits, milk, herbs, valuable stones, minerals, and everything that people needed. They were even free from all bodily miseries, anxiety of mind, and disturbances caused by natural phenomena and other living beings.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, so now Prabhupada's giving a bit more detail. Why are the people happy? Why are the citizens happy? So one thing is, Prabhupada says here, they have everything that they need. And he mentioned specifically natural produce, grains, fruits, milk, etc. So all these things we can see, they're all just things that you can get from the land, from the earth. They're not things, that you have to get in a factory and things like that. And then he mentions, free from all bodily miseries, anxieties of the mind. So, so basically, any bodily diseases or miseries, any mental diseases, anything like that, that's simply not present there. Even natural phenomena, which you think that has nothing to do with the administration, surely it doesn't matter who's ruling, that's completely separate. That's the natural that's just nature, you know, that's not related to who's sitting on the throne. But no, it's explained that because obviously everything is ultimately under Krishna's control, it's under the Supreme Lord's control. So if we have the good administration, like is described here, and the people of the world are kept happy, then Krishna even makes sure that there is no disturbance from natural disasters either. So it's a very powerful point, which, you know, people of today, they don't know. They don't understand the causes behind all these natural things, and that we can actually stop them, you know, by serving Krishna, by surrendering to Krishna. So yeah, people don't understand this. And also free from disturbances caused by other living beings. You know, generally, again, today's day and age, we're constantly disturbed by other living beings 24 hours a day, every day. So again, it's very hard for us to imagine such a incredibly peaceful society without conflict. It's very hard for us to imagine. Okay, Raj Prabhu, would you like to read this part of the purport?
Because everyone was happy in all respects, there was no resentment, although there were sometimes battles between the state kings for political reasons and supremacy. Everyone was trained to attain the highest goal of life, and therefore the people were also enlightened enough not to quarrel over trivialities.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so yeah, continuing this point about no disturbance by the living beings. So, you know, it's because, you know, everyone's happy, so there's no reason for them to resent each other. Obviously, it does mention sometimes there are battles between the state kings for political reasons and supremacy. So obviously, like we mentioned, there's a whole sort of world empire under the king of Hastinapur, but below that is all the different kings of the different states who are subordinate kings to the emperor. But, you know, being kings, I guess sometimes that desire for power still came up amongst these smaller kings, and maybe they challenged each other at times, or they challenged, you know, even maybe they've challenged Maharaj Yudhishthira as well, but obviously they were unsuccessful. Well, whatever battles they may have been, you know, we don't hear anything about that. Generally, we just hear that, you know, that reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira was very, very peaceful. So then, also this second point is very powerful as well. That why were they not quarreling over all these things that we generally quarrel over in today's day and age? Because they understand it's all trivial, it's all unimportant in terms of the goal of life. So this, when they're talking about the goal of life, ultimately they're talking about spiritual goal of life. So they were trained, you know, everyone is trained that way. Again, no one is trained to know what's the goal of life. No one knows what's the goal of their own life, let alone, you know, life in general. Like, what's the ultimate aim of life in general? No one knows. So they don't know, they don't place importance on that. So instead, what they consider to be important is sort of these trivial things. And when they can't get those things, or when they see other people have those things and they don't have it, then obviously they start quarreling. And this is just Kali Yuga. You know, this is the nature of Kali Yuga. Yeah, generally only in the Krishna consciousness movement, or you know, movements like this, then people are actually being told about the highest goal of life. But obviously that's a small, you know, very small population of the world, at least at the moment, who actually, you know, follow these paths. Okay, anyone who hasn't read yet would like to read the last part of the purport. Otherwise, Mataji can read. Okay, Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna. The influence of the age of Kali gradually infiltrated the good qualities of both the kings and the citizens, and therefore a tense situation developed between the ruler and the ruled. But still, even in this age of disparity between the ruler and the ruled, there can be spiritual empowerment and God consciousness. That is a special prerogative.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, so we started talking about Kali Yuga. So here Prabhupada is saying that, you know, in the current age, you know, everyone has been influenced by Kali, the kings and the citizens. So the rulers, the leaders, presidents, prime ministers, whatever, they've all been infected by the influence of Kali. And we can see, it's not hard to see that there are very few good qualities left in the rulers, the politicians, the leaders. Very, very few qualities, if any. So many scandals and things in the newspaper and in the news about so many different, you know, rulers and politicians and heads of state. It's just become a common thing. It's become a norm thing. Now we just think, oh yeah, that's to be expected of them now, you know. So that's how far the situation has fallen from this time. Okay, so he mentions, you know, this tense situation because, you know, the kings don't have, the leaders don't have good qualities. The citizens have very little good qualities. So obviously it's going to be tense, there's going to be conflict, and basically because everyone is going after their own self-interest, or what they think is their self-interest, material self-interest. So there's, as mentioned, Prabhupada mentions this disparity between the ruler and the ruled. But then he's saying, even in this age of disparity, still there can be God consciousness. And of course, that is what Srila Prabhupada came to establish. In the age of Kali, he came to establish this God consciousness, this Krishna consciousness. So yeah, that's like a special prerogative even in this age of Kali. Okay, so I also wanted to look at some points from Srila Prabhupada's lecture on today's verse. So if we quickly go back to, so in the Sanskrit it says Gajavaya, and the translation that is translated as Hastinapur. So Prabhupada explains that. It's quite funny how he explains it as well. He says that Gajavaya means Hastinapur. Hasti means elephant. So because it is Hastinapur, therefore the name. And Gaja means also elephant. So this capital of Maharaj Yudhishthir, Hastinapur, may be taken that there were many elephants. Formerly the kings used to maintain. Otherwise, who will maintain elephants? Suppose I bring one elephant, I present to you. Will you accept? No, you will be finished. You can keep one dog, go, go, go. But if I say, I present you one elephant, please keep it. No, sir, it is not possible. So who will maintain? And then he goes on to say, during Maharaj Yudhishthir's time or before that, the city was so full of elephants that it is named after elephant. And still in India, in big procession, marriage ceremony, they bring some elephants, but that is in procession. Elephants, horses are demonstrated, especially royal family. But these things have now gone. Now, instead of Hastinapur, it is now Motorcarpur. Just see. So Prabhupada explains this, in a very funny way. Now we don't see elephants, we see motor cars, Motorcarpur. Okay, so a few more points from the lecture. So Prabhupada talks about selection. He's talking about how Yudhishthira is selecting the next king. So he's saying this is parampara. Yudhishthira's responsibility is that next king, because he's going to retire, so next emperor, he should be also equally qualified like me. Therefore it is said, Susamam Gunai. Susamam, exactly my representative. My grandson Parikshit, he has got the equal qualification. Therefore, he should be installed. Not a vagabond. No, that cannot be. So even though it's a monarchy, it's not simply next in line to the throne automatically becomes the next king, no matter what qualities they have. No, still it's actually the next person is actually selected, specifically selected based on what are they basing that decision on? Qualification. So it's not, even though it's a monarchy and they seem to be, having absolute power, but again, they're not abusing that and just putting anyone on the throne simply because of birth, but it's because of qualification. So similarly, just like we hear about the Varnashram system and being a Brahmana or being a Kshatriya or whatever is all based on actually qualification, not birth. So similarly, even when they would select the king, it was also based on qualification. So this implies that obviously there was Maharaj Parikshit, but implies that if there was no blood relative that was qualified, then Maharaj Yudhishthira could have chosen someone else who wasn't even a blood relation if they felt that they were actually qualified to sit on the throne. So it's not just sort of abuse of power and keeping it in one family. I mean, in this situation, obviously it was the grandson, but it didn't have to be. Okay, so then again, so unless one is qualified, highly qualified, how he can be installed as the head of the executive of the state or the world, that is not possible. This is not the system. This is the system. The head of the state should be perfect, and the next head should be selected by this perfect head of the state. So if the current ruler is perfect, fully qualified, then that means they will make sure to choose the right person to succeed them. So therefore, that next person will be fully qualified, and this process will continue. So all the rulers will be fully qualified in that way. Okay, so that's the first point: selection based on qualification. And we will summarize these points at the end anyway. Okay, so next point. Formerly, the whole planet, Bharatvarsha, it was named Bharatvarsha, and it was being governed by one emperor. Therefore, it is said here, Swarat. Swarat means completely independent. Maharaj Yudhishthira was not dependent on any other king or any other state. Whatever he liked, he could do. That is king, that is emperor. If the so-called king or the president is dependent on the votes of some rascal voters, then what kind of Swarat he is? At the present moment, the so-called president is dependent on the votes of some rascals. So here now, it mentions that they're completely independent, and Prabhupada specifically says, whatever he liked, he could do. So yes, they could do whatever they like, but as we mentioned earlier, because they're properly trained to understand what is my duty to the citizens, how can I look after my citizens? Therefore, even though they can do whatever they liked, they didn't do, whatever they liked in terms of, for selfish reasons or anything like that. They simply did their duty, as was taught to them by their predecessor. And Prabhupada is contrasting this to the modern voting system, how obviously the people that are being voted for are not qualified, and the people who are voting for them are not qualified. So it only makes sense, the kind of situation that we have today. So Prabhupada continues, the rascals, they do not know whom to vote, and therefore another rascal is elected. And when he is not doing well, they cry. But you have elected. Why you are crying now? Because they are rascals, they do not know. So this is going on. But actually the head of the state should be Swarat, fully independent, not on the votes of the Praja. He is only dependent on Krishna, just like Maharaj Yudhishthir. All the Pandavas, they were under the order of Krishna. So the king or emperor is a representative of Krishna. So we mentioned this point about selection. So now the second main point that I picked out from the lecture specifically is that the ruler has to be a representative of Krishna, representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in one sense, we're saying they are completely independent, but they are dependent on one person, on Krishna. But otherwise, they're not dependent on any of the citizens. So because they're like that, because they're fully independent, they don't depend on the votes of the citizens, then they are not constrained in that way. So if something needs to be done for the good of the people, then they'd have the power to do it, and they can do it immediately without having to go through such a long-winded process that we can see in today's age. They have the power to just to make that change as necessary. So just to explain this point about Praja, what does Praja mean? So Prabhupada explains this in a lecture on the Nectar of Devotion in Bombay, 4th of January, 1973. He says, anyone who takes birth in that country, in that kingdom, he is called Praja. So it is the duty of the king to give protection to all Prajas. Not the only human being, or my brother or my sister, and not the animals. No, they're also Praja. But because there is no Krishna consciousness, they think that Praja means only the human beings, that's all. Imperfect knowledge. But when one becomes Krishna conscious, he loves everyone. Because his connection with Krishna, Krishna says, Sarva yonishu kaunteya sambhavanti murtaya yaha. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 4. Krishna says that all forms of living entities, all species of life, their mother is the material nature, and I am the seed-giving father. So, so we mentioned the ruler is not dependent on the votes of the Praja, but they make sure to take care of all the Praja. It is their duty to protect them. So here, Prabhupada is saying that not just those in human bodies, but also in animal bodies. Because, why is this? Because, Krishna, he's saying himself that he's the father of all living entities. So he's mentioning the connection with Krishna. So basically, to simplify it, the ruler is basically a devotee. He's Krishna conscious. Because he's Krishna conscious, he loves everyone. Why does he love everyone? Because everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. Everyone is a child of Krishna. So therefore, obviously, they love Krishna. So they love all the living entities as well. And therefore, even they make sure that even the animals are given protection. And we see that very clearly even after this in Maharaj Parikshit's life as well, especially with the cow and the bull being attacked by Kali. We see that very clearly there. That the king has the power and is ready and willing to give protection to even the animals as well. Okay, anyway, so moving back on to the lecture on today's verse, Prabhupada goes on to say that why Krishna wanted this battle of Kurukshetra to install Maharaj Yudhishthira on the throne. Because he knew that he is my right representative, not the Duryodhan. Therefore, there must be fight, and this Duryodhan and company should be finished, and Yudhishthira should be installed. So again, continuing this point about them being a representative of Krishna. So because the rulers were not his representative, he wanted them out of the way, and he wanted his devotee, Maharaj Yudhishthira, to sit on the throne instead. Because then, that protection will be there. Otherwise, if Duryodhana remains on the throne, if the Kauravas are on the throne, then they're not going to be protecting the citizens or the animals or anyone. They're just going to be looking after their own selfish interests. So obviously Krishna doesn't want this. So yeah, then Prabhupada continued this point that the emperor should be representative of God, should be fully qualified. We mentioned that. That's a Vedic system. So because they're fully qualified, Prabhupada says, therefore he could maintain the kingdom. So they're maintaining the whole kingdom very nicely. Then this point again that we've already heard, the citizens were fully qualified. They did not suffer from disease, excessive heat, excessive coldness. No, very peaceful. Supply was properly, sarvakama dugamahi. Everything was being supplied. Whatever you want, that is supplied through the earth, throughout the earth. So again, this point that Prabhupada mentioned in the purport. But all these things from the earth, from the land, is being supplied properly. So therefore, they have no want for anything. There's no lack of anything. Everything they need is supplied through natural means. So yeah, there's everything that they could possibly need for simple living, high thinking. That is all there. So obviously we know that also they'll be keeping cows, looking after the cows, milking the cows, having bulls to plow the land, and all of that, as we see in even in Goshala these days as well. So yeah, living on the land, and just as it describes in Nectar Instruction, that not over endeavoring to get more than you need, not overeating, just whatever you need, you can get, and that is supplied through the earth, through natural means. And then okay, so continues this point about head of state is perfect, then naturally the citizens will be perfect, because all the laws are there. So this is that point that I was making, that they have the power to make the changes where necessary. So, if the head of state says no more meat eating, all slaughterhouses will be closed. If the head of state says no more intoxication, then all the cigarette factories and liquor factories will be closed. So therefore, the head must be perfect. Then, yad acharati shreshta tadeva vitaro janaha. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 21. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that what the chief man behaves, others will follow. Therefore, it is called leader. Saying this is why they're called leader. Leader actually leads the people. So basically, what is the point being made here? That they're setting the example. That's the main point here, setting the example for the citizens. So, and we can just imagine what chaos, so what would actually happen if they tried to, if they tried to do it in today's day and age. First thing, they wouldn't be able to do it anyway. Even if the president says no more meat eating, they don't have the power. They won't have the power to close all the slaughterhouses. If they say no more intoxication, again, it'll be literally impossible. There's no way to do this, to close all the cigarette factories, liquor factories. So many people will lose out, and there's so much money involved in these things that it's simply not possible. And if they try, they will make many enemies. Who knows? Who knows what it will lead to. So it's simply not possible in today's day and age. So they don't actually have power, or they don't have the power to make changes like this. And these, as I said, these things, they're like, we consider them like the four main, not we consider, they are the four main sinful activities, as we know. That's why we have the 4 regulative principles to stop these things like, meat eating, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex. So these are like the pillars of sinful life. But in today's society, they are like the pillars of society. Today's society is kind of based on these things. They are the intrinsic parts of society, and yeah, it wouldn't be possible to do things like that. But if there was, an absolute ruler, a monarch with absolute power, who's also a devotee, who's also Krishna conscious, then they can make these changes. Because again, even if there was a ruler like that, but if they're not Krishna conscious, they wouldn't be interested in that anyway. They'll probably be doing just as much meat eating and smoking and intoxication, or probably even more than the citizens. Yeah, but they would be doing more because, they would have a lot more facility being the ruler. So it's not just about having a king, but having a devotee king. Or as we always hear the term Raja Rishi. So ultimately, ruler who has all these good qualities. When they have these spiritual qualifications, that is what is needed. That is kind of given here as like the perfect system. But again, it's very hard for us to go back to. We can't really go back to this system now. But at least we understand the ideal. But yeah, at least at the moment, it's not possible. Okay, so these few points, obviously we could probably pick up more points. And obviously I only picked up few sort of paragraphs from the lecture. I would recommend listening to the whole lecture when you guys have a chance. It's very nice lecture. But I just wanted to summarize the main points which I picked out. So I just came up with a not random, but just sort of a last minute kind of acronym. I don't know how good it is, but anyway. So the first point that we discussed, S means selected by the previous ruler on the basis of qualification. Then I, completely independent. R, they should be a representative of Krishna. And E, they set the example for citizens through their conduct and character. So therefore we have Saya. As we know, the king is often referred to as Saya. So, and also being the Saya, siring means like being the father, fathering. So again, like we mentioned about the ruler, just looking after, giving protection to all the citizens, even the animals, like they're the father of all the citizens. Yeah. And again, we had that term, that Sanskrit word praja, which means those who have taken birth. So they give protection to any living entity who takes birth in their kingdom. So so that is the points that I picked out. Again, as I said, we could pick out so many more. Okay, so I'll stop. That's the end of the presentation. So does anyone have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to add? Then please go ahead. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this session today, and very nicely put the acronym SIRE for this. I wish all the world leaders would read this or listen to this session and make a difference in their small ways. But it's getting out of hand, and as you said, that Kali Yuga is set in, so just have to tolerate and get on. excellent class, and I open up to any questions or comments. Are there any questions or comments in this group? Yes, Raj Prabhu and
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all the devotees.
Hare Krishna.
That's very nicely presented. And we hear like things like how everyone was happy.
Yeah.
And we kind of like skip by it. But when you actually think about it, it's actually inconceivable even to make, we know because we try and make people happy, we make an effort sometimes.
Yeah.
We find it actually inconceivable to even to make one person happy all the time.
Yeah.
And like here, you've got not one person happy, but everyone in the whole world happy. And not only the people, but all of the animals, the fish, the insects, the birds, all living entities.
Yeah.
It's like inconceivable times and inconceivable times inconceivable. Yeah. And then on the next part, you were saying like how everyone was happy, but the rulers liked to, or the rulers had fights or wars. I can't remember the term that you used. And then I thought, how can they be happy then if they're fighting? But then I remembered, of course, because the Kshatriyas used to love to fight.
Yeah.
They don't care who they're fighting. They're just like fired up for fight all the time. So obviously that's what they like to do. So it's a sporting pastime almost for them. And they want to prove that they're the best fighter. So that probably where it comes in, fighting for supremacy over each other.
Yeah.
I imagine you may have other views on that.
No, thank you so much, Raj Prabhu. That's really helpful that you mentioned that, because I was also wondering if they're all happy, then even the state king should be happy as well. So why are they fighting? But yeah, you made a very important point that they're Kshatriyas, so they have that fighting spirit. And just like we hear that when Arjun says that I should go to the forest, and then Krishna is basically saying that you won't be satisfied there. You basically he says you're going to lose your mind there. You'll just be agitated so much because you're Kshatriya, so that's not your nature. So yeah, that's probably a very good explanation for that. That probably because they're Kshatriyas, they have that fighting spirit, and because there's peace everywhere, they have no outlet for it. So what they're going to do? So I guess that was the only option. Similarly to like, even it can help us get a small understanding of the Lord's pastimes as well, because as we know, he's in Vaikuntha and the Lord is in Vaikuntha, and there's no opportunity for him to fight and engage in that virya ras and enjoy in that way. So as we know, he has to come down and fight the demons. So similarly, we can think of it like that they had no other opportunity to use that fighting spirit. So yeah, they fought amongst each other. But obviously it didn't lead to anything, because Maharaj Yudhishthir or whoever's Maharaj Parikshit or whoever the ruler is so powerful that I'm sure they'll sort out the situation very quickly. But yeah, thank you so much. That was actually quite helpful for me as well. Thank you, Raj Prabhu. Anything else from anybody?
If I may,
Sure.
a thought just came after Raj Prabhu's comments that even the animals and insects and everybody were happy, and probably they didn't know, I don't know, but I don't think they knew the ultimate goal of life was. But because they probably had abundant, they have fights only because their animals are better than us, because they don't hoard things and they don't want more and more. If they have whatever they want, which is probably food and a place to stay and eating, mating, sleeping. They are comfortable there, then they don't need to fight. And they don't need to quarrel with other animals or insects. So I guess in a way they were better than us now. We just want more and more. They are becoming more and more materialistic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because like we mentioned, everything was being supplied by the earth, which is ultimately under the control of the Supreme Personality Godhead. So everything is there for all the humans and all the animals as well. Prabhupada mentions this point in many lectures that, all these animals are there, millions and millions of animals everywhere. They're not starving to death, they're being supplied, everything, their food and everything is there. It's only because of the actions and mismanagement of humans that there's problems. But generally everything is there. Everything is supplied. And then he mentions he says sometimes you may have a little hole in your room and some ants come out, and then sometimes hundreds of ants come out. And so they're getting food from somewhere. Krishna is providing food. So I was just remembering that because we have a bit of an ant problem right now in our house as well. Downstairs, there's like coming from some random hole, there's ants coming up. So I heard that lecture the other day, and it's quite funny because it was literally happening in the house. There were some ants coming from somewhere, and then I heard that lecture from Prabhupada. So it was quite funny. But yeah, even the little ants are being supplied. So yeah, like you said, Mataji, everything is there. So they didn't need to fight amongst each other, even if they didn't actually know what's the ultimate goal of life. So yeah, anybody else before we finish? Okay, shall we conclude?
No more questions or comments. I will hand over to Path Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Are you there? Are you able to switch on?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you very much for your nice and simplified. Yes, Prabhuji, for your simplified summaries about the characteristics of the king, the ruler in the country. How the Vedic scriptures are so fulfilled, and like it is called the Apurusaya, it means that knowledge is not to be contaminated. We can now, the present scenario in all of the world, how this is disturbance, even the ruler, the great presidents and prime minister, they are all corrupted because they are selected by the Prabhupada court. This one 2 times, 3 times, rascal voters.
Yeah.
When the rascal voters, they are selected, the rascal, they will be selected. So how can we get this one? We can understand everybody is telling Ram Rajya, but nobody follow. They knows what is the Ram Rajya, what is the opulence, what is the facilities, what is the glories of the Rajya, Ram Rajya, how the people are living like happily, like the son of the king. As much as they are benefited the son of the king's son, it means prince or princess, the same benefit are getting by the ordinary people. So that people are, nowadays also they admire the Ram Rajya, but unfortunately they don't like or they don't obey the principle or the advice of the Lord Ram. That is the mistake. So, like it is talking about the king is the representative of Krishna. Yes, it is here in the 10th Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th point 27. It is talking about Naranam cha Naradhipam. It means among all the person, all the men, I am the Naradhipam. It means monarch, the king. So king is not the ordinary person, like president or prime minister is not the ordinary person. They are represented by Krishna. But how they are represented? They are not by the control by the people. Oh, I am giving this type of cheap things. I am giving free, giving that one, like that. You're giving me vote. So people have no idea what is they are doing. So that this is happened in like that. So if they are the king not supposed to be like you're talking about the Shorat, he's completely independent. If he's independent, he can decide like independently what is the benefit for all of the citizens, not for some community of the people, some part of the people. So that is the thing. Because king is not an ordinary person. He is the appointed, and he is the representative of Lord Krishna. He is only responsible to the Krishna, not for the ordinary people. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, because the Kali Yuga, we cannot expect more things. If we're telling like that one, they are telling you are the so many things they are commenting us. So let Krishna, we can pray to Krishna. At least the king who is selected by the people or whatever it will be, if they are ruled, reading the scriptures and other things also, they will be happy. And I'm giving example. That is not an example, that is really truth. When Prabhupada was spreading this movement, and that time also Mahatma Gandhi also there, many people knows that one. And you want to show the Mahatma Gandhi, Prabhupada want to meet Mahatma Gandhi and talking about the not like that non-violence, non-violence, non-violence. That is not applicable nowadays. You're supposed to do the right things in the right time. But unfortunately, he did not meet Mahatma Gandhi because Mahatma Gandhi is like ahimsa, non-violence. But what will happen? Prabhupada told these people are truly not Mahatma. He is not Mahatma. He is showing the non-violence, but he will be killed by violence. And that will happen after 1 year or 6 months, he will shoot dead. So that is the Prabhupada's written somewhere, and he told to his disciples, and that is happened. So that is because this Rishi, Maharshi, the Sadhu Santa, they are the visionary. They see the future scenario, what is going on. So thank you very much, Prabhuji. And we can understand now that what is the qualification of a king or monarch, so that he will be supposed to be rule accordingly. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your nice class. Also, thanks very much, Raj, Prabhuji's comment. Also, thanks very much everyone who joining here. I request everyone, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for glorification of His Grace Nikhil Prabhuji. Please join. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Vancha kalpa tarurvyasya kripa sindhubhya Patitanam pavanebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji ki jai. Thank you very much, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Nikhil Prabhu, I just wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
So the leader in Kenya 3 years ago said that we should ban plastic, and plastic bags should not be used for environment. And we don't use plastic bags in Kenya because they were a real source site. They were blocking the water reservoirs. They were affecting the cows. So as you said, we don't have a good leader, but if you had a good leader, they have the power to stop, and it can happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.